Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Always great to be back.
Today we're going deep on something that's been kind of hard to ignore. The aging workforce.
Yeah, it's everywhere you look, right?
Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And you all sent in a ton of research on this. It's clearly not just some flash in the pan thing.
It really feels like it's changing how businesses function at a basic level.
Absolutely. We're going to be focusing on some surveys of HR folks and risk officers, the ones really dealing with this firsthand.
Right, the people in the trenches.
Exactly. And, what's really interesting is this kind of split we see. Our company's looking at this as a wave of experience to tap into.
Or potential, resource drain.
Yeah, exactly. And we've even got some examples of what companies are trying to, hold on to those seasoned workers.
Keep them in the game.
Totally. What's working, what's not. We'll get into all of that.
Looking forward to it.
All right, so to kick things off, let's get a grip on this whole aging workforce thing. What's the baseline here? Well, the data's been pretty consistent. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, they've been tracking this forever.
Right. They're usually a good source for, the big picture stuff.
Totally. So back in '94, only around 12% of the workforce was 55 or older.
Okay, so not a huge number back then.
Nope. But by 2014, that jumped to almost 22%.
Whoa. Okay, that is a jump.
And projections put it at almost 25% by 2024.
So it's not just people living longer, it's them working longer too, right?
Exactly. So yeah, life expectancy is up. But think about it. If people retire at the usual age, they're looking at way more years in retirement than, their parents or grandparents.
And that means needing more savings to actually cover that time.
Exactly. That might be why we see so many older adults staying in the workforce. Back in '94, only about 30% of those 55 and older were working or looking for work. By 2014, it was 40%.
Wow, so that's a big change. What does this mean for, the average person out there?
Well, you'll probably see more older colleagues, which can be great for, sharing knowledge and experience.
Yeah, learning from people who've, been there and done that.
Right. It also means thinking about your own plans, down the line.
Do you see yourself working into your 60s or 70s?
Yeah. And how can you prepare for that now?
It's a good point. We're often focused on the company side, but this is personal too.
Totally.
And, the research shows companies aren't exactly unified on how they feel about this trend. Some are worried about losing all that experience when people retire.
The brain drain, right. Yeah, that worry definitely shows up in the data. One survey, I think it was by Willis Towers Watson, found 83%, a full 83% of HR managers are concerned about losing that knowledge.
That's a huge number.
It is. Even risk managers are in on it. 57% of them see losing talent because of retirement as a major short-term risk.
So basically, they're sweating bullets over who's going to replace these folks. Makes sense to me. But then there's this whole other set of companies that seem more worried about, the cost of having older workers.
Right, the other side of the coin. Higher salaries, maybe more expensive health care, that kind of thing.
Yeah, understandable if you're trying to keep the budget under control.
Absolutely. That same survey found 44% of employers were concerned about rising benefit costs and 35% about, paying more in salaries. It's like they're caught between experience and the bottom line.
A tough spot to be in. This probably isn't the same across the board, though, right? Aging workforce impacts will be different depending on the industry, right?
Totally. It's not a simple older workers good or older workers bad situation. Yeah. It's nuanced. Think about a factory that needs a lot of skilled tradespeople. Losing a bunch of, say, machinists or welders, that's a bigger hit than a tech company losing a few senior devs.
That's a great point. The impact's going to be different everywhere. So listeners, think about where your company fits into this. What are your specific challenges as the workforce ages? Are you in a hands-on industry? One where experience and mentoring are super important. Something to think about. Definitely. So we've talked big picture. We've talked concerns. But what are companies actually doing about this aging workforce? There's got to be some action happening, right?
Oh, definitely. And it's not just sitting around worrying. There are some pretty cool things companies are trying out. Some are really focused on making work more attractive to older employees.
Okay, yeah, making it worth their while to stick around.
Exactly. And others are getting smart about preserving knowledge before people retire. Really strategic stuff.
Love it. So what's standing out to you in all this research?
What surprised me? the data on those formal phased retirement programs.
Oh, yeah, where you gradually reduce your hours or something?
Right, exactly. You'd think those would be, like, super common. But in that Willis Towers Watson survey, only about 9% of companies had an actual formal policy.
Huh. That's way lower than I expected. I figured companies would be all over that, keeping experienced people around, even if it's part-time. What's the deal?
Seems like there are a few reasons. Some companies are worried about the whole, like, logistics of it, the cost of running those programs.
Yeah. Admin stuff can be a pain.
For sure.
Yep.
Plus, they have to make sure it fits with their, overall strategy. It doesn't make sense to have a phased retirement program if it, like, clashes with your business goals.
Right. Got to be aligned.
Totally. And then there's, legal stuff. That Age Discrimination in Employment Act, companies are always a bit cautious about anything that could, bump up against that.
Yeah. Legal headaches are no fun. So lots of red tape, potential lawsuits. No wonder companies are a bit hesitant. But they're not just giving up and saying, retire at 65, see ya. What are they doing instead?
They're going informal, being more flexible, Over 55% said they handle phased retirement case by case.
So working it out individually with each employee makes sense?
Maybe reduce hours for one person, change someone else's responsibilities, that kind of thing.
Tailor-made solutions. What else are they doing?
Part-time work and those return-to-work programs are becoming pretty popular. It's all about, finding ways to keep those skilled people involved, even if they don't want to work full-time anymore.
So instead of losing them completely, maybe bring them back for a project or a part-time gig. Clever. Any data on how common that is? Yeah,
actually, almost half the companies in the survey, 49%, said they at least sometimes bring retirees back, either part-time or as, independent contractors.
So a good chunk of companies are tapping into that experience pool.
It's like they're realizing they can have their cake and eat it, too.
Exactly. And it's not just about, bodies and seats, right? It's about skills, too.
Absolutely. Keeping those skills sharp. 40% of companies are offering extra training to their older workers, keeping them up to date with tech, industry changes, that kind of thing.
Smart move. It's like, why let a valuable piece of equipment get rusty, rightly? Treat your experienced employees the same way. Speaking of which, what about the actual workspace? Are companies making changes to accommodate older workers, physically?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We see some cool stuff happening there, too. About 36% of companies said they've made changes to working conditions, specifically for older employees. Things like ergonomic workstations, more flexible schedules, that kind of thing.
So not just the work itself, but making the environment more comfortable, supportive. Makes sense.
Right. And then, there's the money side of things. Always a big factor for everyone. 66%, a solid majority of companies, are offering financial wellness and retirement planning programs.
I bet those are popular. Take some of the pressure off.
For sure. People can focus on work and feel good knowing their finances are, in order.
Okay, so we've got companies trying all sorts of things, but I'm thinking bigger picture now. Any policy changes on the government side that could play into this? Could the government, give companies an incentive to hire or keep older workers, or make it easier for retirees to come back to work?
It's a great question, and one that a lot of people are thinking about. There are a few ideas floating around. One that keeps popping up is this concept of paid-up status for Social Security and Medicare for people 65 and over who are still working.
Paid-up status, okay. What does that mean exactly?
Basically, it would mean reducing, maybe even eliminating, the employer payroll taxes for those workers. So it'd be cheaper for companies to, hire or keep those older employees, like a financial nudge to hang on to that experience.
Interesting. So companies save money, older workers keep contributing, win-win, right? But does the research actually show that it would work?
That's where things get a little fuzzy. Willis Towers Watson asked HR managers how they'd react to that kind of change. And get this, only 9% said they'd be more likely to hire older workers if those payroll taxes were lower.
Whoa, that's a lot lower than I would have guessed. So even with money on the table, most companies aren't jumping at it. Why not?
Hard to say for sure, but it seems like those cost savings just might not be enough to outweigh other concerns. Maybe they're worried about training costs, potential health issues, or the idea that, older workers might not adapt as well to new tech or new ways of doing things.
So those cost savings are just one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Exactly. Lots of factors at play.
Okay, so if paid-up status isn't the magic bullet, what else are people talking about?
Well, there's some talk about changing the rules around contractor status for retirees who want to come back. Right now, there are a lot of rules about how and when they can work as contractors. There's this idea of loosening those restrictions, which could open up more opportunities for older workers who want to, stay involved, but maybe not as traditional employees.
So tapping that expertise without the full-time commitment, more flexibility. But like you said earlier, any policy change can have, unintended consequences. What are we missing here?
One big worry is that if it's too easy for retirees to come back as contractors, it could actually hurt younger workers who are just starting out in those same fields.
Right, trying to get their foot in the door.
Exactly. It's a tricky balance. We don't want to help one group and accidentally hurt another. Need solutions that work for everyone.
Yeah, gotta find that sweet spot. What else?
Healthcare's a big one. Some people are suggesting making Medicare the main payer for anyone over 65 who's working, even if they have insurance through their employer.
Interesting. What's the thinking there?
Well, it could encourage companies to keep older workers longer, since they wouldn't be paying for their health insurance anymore.
Makes sense on the surface.
But, there's always a flip side. It could really change the whole healthcare landscape, cost-wise and, structurally.
So good intentions, but lots of potential for things to go sideways.
Yeah, this policy stuff is complex. There's no easy fix.
Which brings me to a question for our listeners. What do you think about these ideas? What impact would they have on businesses, on older workers, on the economy in general? Lot to unpack there.
Definitely a conversation worth having.
Yeah, those policy questions are, they're definitely complicated. But before we, go too deep down that rabbit hole, let's circle back to everyone listening. We've covered a lot of ground here. What's the main takeaway? What does this all mean for, YUU and for how we think about work going forward?
Well, I think the one thing that's, beyond clear is that this aging workforce thing, it's not going away.
It's here to stay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental change. It's going to keep reshaping businesses, careers, everything for years to come.
Yeah, it's not just a passing fad.
Nope. So CEO, manager, just starting out, doesn't matter. You got to have this on your radar.
We've seen some companies, they're really embracing this, right? Finding ways to keep those experienced workers engaged, adapting to their needs, all of that.
Yep. Some are rock stars.
But then there are others who, they seem a bit more stuck in the old ways, focused on the potential negatives.
True. And there's no one-size-fits-all solution, right? The best approach is going to be different for every company. Depends on the industry, the culture, the types of jobs, all of that.
So many variables.
Right. But the key thing is to be proactive. Have a plan. Think ahead about how you're going to deal with this because it's not going anywhere.
So anyone listening who's in a leadership role, that means looking at your workforce, really looking, figuring out what impact retirement might have on your key people, and then exploring those strategies we talked about.
Phased retirement, flexible work, all that good stuff.
Exactly. There are options out there, but it's not just on companies.
No way. Individuals have got to be thinking about this too.
Their own career goals, how those might need to adjust as the workforce keeps aging.
Right. Are you ready to work with people from, different generations? Are you learning new skills, keeping up with technology? That stuff matters, no matter how old you are, where you are in your career.
It's a good point. The workplace is becoming more and more multi-generational. Being able to, actually work well with people from different backgrounds, different experience levels, that's only going to become more important.
And I'd add to that, think about how you can use your own experience to, help younger colleagues coming in, mentor them, share what you know.
So that cross-generational knowledge transfer.
Exactly. That's going to be huge going forward.
Mentorship becomes even more important in that kind of environment. It's realizing that an aging workforce isn't just a problem, right?
Right.
It's also an opportunity for collaboration, for knowledge sharing, for, new ideas and innovation.
Totally. We always frame it as this thing to overcome, but there's so much potential there. We just got to shift our thinking a bit.
Love that. So it's not just experience or our fresh perspectives.
It's both.
It's bring them together to, create something even better.
Where experience meets innovation.
I should have said it better myself. Well, folks, I think we've really dug deep today. We've looked at the trends behind this whole aging workforce thing, the concerns companies have, the potential solutions, the policy stuff, all of it, and what it means for you personally, no matter where you are in your career.
That's to chew on.
Always. And we always say knowledge is power. Understanding these trends, that's the first step to making, smart decisions for your company, for your own career, all of it.
Couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Well, until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.